I recognize Mr. LaLota from New York.
Thank you, Chairman. Gentlemen, thanks for being here, for what you're doing for our great country. I represent a suburban district in New York. I'm about an hour or two east of Manhattan. I'm the Yankee in the crowd, and I appreciate your hospitality. I think I've traveled the furthest of any member in the committee here. This issue is important to my constituents. It's important to me because New York is indeed a border state. We are a border state because of the sanctuary city policies that come from my state. We are a border state because of President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas' failed leadership, and we are a border state because of the lack of infrastructure, technology, and personnel at the border. And my first line of questioning is going to go to the folks from the state and local, the director and the sheriff. You folks are stepping up and are leading where the federal government is not. This should be a federal issue. The federal government has a responsibility to secure our border. And in absence of that, I commend you and I thank you on behalf of my constituents for stepping up. We've had tons of fentanyl deaths in our county, about 400 recently. We have crime, we have overcrowding in our schools, we have legitimate people looking to go through the immigration process, and folks have cut that line, but your leadership, gentlemen, has helped thwart some of that. So my question is, as a follow-on to Mr. Pfluger's question, what is the cost of you stepping up in the federal government's absence in terms of dollars? What have you had to spend, first you, Director, and then Sheriff afterwards, what have you had to spend to fill those leadership shoes?
Well, just in the last 2 years, the state spent over $4 billion. And they're looking at spending another $4 billion in the next biennium, and they're having to find revenue to be able to do that. So they're not planning on it being the problem immediately going away and dissipating. And frankly, if we would love to see, and by the way, 23,000, and we're talking about Border Patrol agents, you're down to 19,000. And then you talk about New York City, one police department's got more officers than the entire U.S. Border Patrol. And they've got I mean, it's pitiful in terms of the underinvestment the federal government's made in Border Patrol over the years in border defenses. That's my one comment. I'll keep my other comments to myself.
And many of my constituents don't know this. My understanding is of Texas' 200-something counties. Many of the counties deploy their officers, their deputies, to the border to help secure the border, sir?
254, and they certainly would, but they're usually back at home trying to take care of the gaps that we leave when we send troopers down south. But there's not a one that doesn't have to deal with border-related problems in their jurisdiction already.
Thank you. Sheriff, on the cost in terms of dollars to your agency, sir?
On my cost, my current budget's just a little over $1 million. That's to cover everything. We're 6 months into it, and I've already expended all my fuel money. So we've got to borrow from somebody else or take it from another department because of issues like that. The cost of EMS having to transport people to and from a local hospital, which we don't have. We got to go 40 miles to go to a hospital. About 20% of what we're transporting to hospitals is the result of illegal immigration. Aliens that have succumbed to the heat or have some type of broken leg, broken arm, been snake bit out in the brush, we have to transport them. We don't get reimbursed. So our EMS crew and my office are going to be in the red again this year because of this.
Safe to say, Sheriff and Director, you would agree that the federal government should reimburse you for those costs?
They should have been reimbursing us a long time ago because the federal government won't pay for our transport to and from.
I'm not sure that Stafford Act covers policy disasters, but clearly it is a disaster and certainly a crisis.
I agree with that. Moving on to opportunity cost, you're diverting resources, personnel, equipment, and otherwise to cover the federal government's back where the federal government has failed. How would you address where you're having to miss the ball back at home in terms of crimes against people, crimes against property? What are you missing because you have to divert your resources to a federal government problem?
Well, on the county level, part of my job is, yes, to help get cats out of the trees, hang out with the kids at school, teach the kids to respect law enforcement, be an example. But because of this illegal immigration, my resources are going elsewhere. Yes, we still handle some of the domestic stuff, the big stuff, but being in the public eye, like we're supposed to be, we're out doing Border Patrol's job. No offense to the Border Patrol because they're being tied up doing other things. My crew I've got 6 full-time deputies, and we spend the majority of our day processing smugglers and illegal immigrants because the Border Patrol can't. So we're missing out on a lot when things we should be doing that we can't.
We have to conduct surge operations, sustain deployments around the state from resources elsewhere in the state and continue to move wave after wave after wave to be able to keep intensified patrol operations, on the river, certainly in the air and on the ground and the brush streams.
Let me close by once again saying thank you. It's a sacrifice that you and your officers and deputies are making personally, financially, and us New Yorkers, we do appreciate it. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize